Ever heard that patience is the key to life's treasures? Well, in today's video, we delve into the captivating tale of young Peter, who learned life's most profound lessons the adventurous way. Stay tuned as we unravel the enchanting story of the magic thread and discover the timeless wisdom hidden within. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more fantastic stories like this. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Peter, the lone child of a widow, led a rather ordinary life, but he had a knack for daydreaming about the future. School was a bore, each day stretching endlessly, and Peter counted down the days to holidays like a prisoner awaiting release. Impatience wasn't just a school thing for Peter, it was in his DNA. But when it came to Leslie, his rock-solid friend, she handled his impatience like a champ. In Peter's daydreams, he'd picture a future where he and Leslie tied the knot, a thought that always put a smile on his face. But with Peter's relentless pursuit of what lay ahead, the big question hung in the air. How would life unfold for this young and impatient dreamer? Peter's life was the same old routine, until one fateful day when everything changed. Peter would often wander into the forest, lie on the grass, close his eyes, and let his mind wander to the future. But this day was different. A mysterious voice called his name, and when he opened his eyes, there stood an old woman with a golden ball, hanging from a silky golden thread. Curiosity got the best of him, and he asked about it, touching that fine golden thread. What he heard next was astounding. The ball was his life thread, and a slight tug could accelerate time. However, there was a catch. Once pulled, time could not be rewound, and any lost moments would be gone forever. Peter couldn't care less, as his excitement was off the charts, and he hurriedly accepted the gift. Will Peter's life become an easy ride from here on out? Well, you'll have to stick around and find out. The very next day at school, with his mind full of dreams about that magical thread, Peter cautiously gave it a little tug. And immediately, the class was over and everyone was headed home. Peter couldn't believe his luck and practically sprinted home. He thought life was about to be a breeze. No more troubles, right? So he started pulling that thread just a little every day. But you know how it goes when you discover a cool power? Peter got bold with it. One day, he had a brilliant idea. Why not give the thread a mighty yank and be done with school for good? So he did. And the next morning, he woke up as an apprentice carpenter in town. Life seemed perfect, didn't it? If only desires were that easy to satisfy. Peter kept reaching for that thread, but would soon discover how much harm he was causing to himself. Peter's longing to marry Leslie took shape when she moved to town to learn housekeeping from her aunt. But Peter's impatience couldn't wait, and he popped the question early. Leslie, being practical, suggested they wait until she was ready to be a capable wife, maybe the year after. However, Peter's patience was running thin as always. That night, tossing and turning in bed, he reached for the magic ball hidden beneath his pillow. Temptation won over patience, and he gave that golden thread a tug. The next morning, he woke up, and lo and behold, a year had vanished, and Leslie had agreed to marry him. Peter was nothing but overjoyed. From escaping school to landing a steady job, and now on the cusp of marrying his love, it all felt like a blink of an eye. Everything was going so well, but little did Peter know he'd soon rue the day he accepted that magic ball. Just before their wedding, Peter got an official letter that knocked the wind out of him. 2 years of military service starting the following week. He broke the news to Leslie, feeling utterly defeated, but she, being the voice of reason, suggested they use this time for wedding preparations. At first, Peter wasn't thrilled about it, But surprisingly, he started to enjoy life in the barracks with his comrades. He resisted the temptation to use that magic thread, remembering the old woman's ominous warning. But as boredom crept in, he couldn't help himself. He pulled that thread to fast-track time, and before he knew it, those 2 years felt like a fleeting dream. Now, back at home, Peter made a solemn promise not to tug that thread unless it was absolutely, positively essential. After all, this was supposed to be the best time of his life, right? He didn't want it to pass by too fast. Well, he couldn't resist giving the thread a tiny nudge or two just to speed up the big wedding day. That wouldn't hurt, would it? On his wedding day, joy filled the air, and Peter couldn't wait to unveil the house he'd built for Leslie. Amidst the wedding festivities, he happened to glance at his mother. For the first time, he noticed how her once dark hair had turned gray recently. She seemed to be aging too fast, and a pang of guilt gripped him. He'd yanked that thread a bit too often, he realized. From now on, he vowed to use it sparingly, only when it was absolutely necessary. Would he keep to his word, though? As expected, Peter's willpower waned over time. A few months later, Leslie shared the joyful news of her pregnancy, and Peter's heart swelled with happiness. When their child was born, he felt complete. Yet, during moments of illness or sleepless nights, Peter sometimes couldn't resist giving the thread a gentle tug to wake up to the time when the baby was well and happy. Then, one day, he glanced at his trusty magic ball and was left in awe. The once golden thread had transformed into silver. A shock also awaited him in the mirror. Gray hairs and wrinkles had crept onto his once youthful face. Fear gripped him, and he resolved to be even more cautious with the thread. With a growing family, Peter needed money for a larger house. His worries also multiplied as his mother aged rapidly. For her, he resisted the urge to use the magic thread, but sadly she passed away, leaving him contemplating life's fleeting nature. One night, weighed down by concerns, Peter yearned for an easier life, where his children were all grown up and on their own career paths. He summoned all his strength and gave the thread a powerful yank. The next day, he awoke to an empty house. His children had scattered across the country for their jobs, leaving him and Leslie alone. Peter's health began to falter, and the once silver thread had turned gray. Needing some answers, he went for a thoughtful walk in the woods. To his surprise, he met the magical old woman once more. She greeted him with a warm smile and asked him a simple question. "Did you have a good life, Peter?" Peter paused, pondering the whirlwind his life had become. He admitted that while the magic thread had its perks, time had slipped through his fingers, and he hadn't truly experienced the ups or downs. He missed his school days, his time in the army, and his years of marriage. They all seemed so short now, and he barely got to see his kids grow up. Life had flown by in his attempt to skip over the tough times, and now his time was almost up. The old woman, with a knowing look, gave Peter a final choice: to hold on to the magic thread or to begin anew, without its influence. Without a second thought, Peter returned the thread to her, opting for a fresh start. He was ready to embrace every moment, whether it brought joy or sorrow. The next day, Peter awoke in his bed as a young boy, filled with boundless happiness, prepared to embrace the ordinary moments of a brand new day. This awesome story teaches us that the real beauty of life isn't about taking the easy way out, but about savoring every experience, treasuring our relationships, and gathering wisdom along the way. Peter's adventure is a reminder to gulp down every moment. After all, always chasing tomorrow might mean missing out on today's breathtaking beauty. And those everyday, regular moments, they're like hidden gems if we just open our eyes to see. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with others, and if it inspired you, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Stay tuned for the next video. See you then.